Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. I don't know about you guys, but War Thunder has been around for a long time, and I've been playing this game for pretty much the entire time that it's been around. Even before tanks, I was playing War Thunder. That's how long I've been around, and as such, I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of promises, a lot of this, that, and the other that Gaijin has planned and just really hasn't come to fruition, and that's kind of what this video is about. War Thunder needs more game modes. So in the past, Gaijin has stated that there'd be other game modes coming to War Thunder, or maybe that they would bring more campaign, whatever the case may be, right? That there would be more to War Thunder than just content in the form of new vehicles, and that's pretty much it. But unfortunately, we've only gotten pretty much new vehicles in the last few years and nothing much more. Of course, there have been some quality of life improvements in War Thunder, don't get me wrong, kind of like giving everybody one free piece of fire equipment for all ground vehicles as soon as they unlock that vehicle, basic parts, better graphics in War Thunder, the ability to repair others, also put out fires and tanks for other people, just a whole bunch of things. That's just kind of scratching the surface. Gaijin has done a lot to improve the quality of life of their main game mode, but that's pretty much it. All that Gaijin has, all that War Thunder has, is going to be AB, RB, and Sim. That's more or less it. That's their primary game mode, and really, all those are just kind of more and more realistic as you go from AB through Sim. That's all that is. That's pretty much just more realism as you go along. Maybe a little bit more difficulty if you want to consider it like that, and that's it. Of course, you have your random things here and there, like your small little game modes, helicopter battles, enduring confrontation, as well as air and ground assault arcade, but that's pretty much it. And when you look at air and ground assault arcade, they clearly do not put any real effort into it, as the top BR bracket for air is 6.7 to 12.7 BR as of current. Basically, so long as you have a jet, they're like, you know what, you can go mix it up with an F-14B, I don't care. I mean, literally, for the first time in like 2 or 3 years I was playing Air Assault Arcade today, I looked at it, and I was in a match with like an ME-262A1, and I was in an F-14A and also an F-20 Tiger Shark. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and of course the guy with the ME-262 got 1 kill, whereas the people who have things like Phoenix missiles or other sort of longer range missiles, they got something like 30 to 50 or more kills. But that's both the point and also a little bit beside the point. Gaijin really doesn't put much effort into just different game modes. The most different type of game mode that Gaijin has, outside of maybe helicopter battles, is going to be the Air and Ground Assault Arcade, and it's clear that they do not care about them. Ground is pretty much in the same way. I think it's like 8.3 BR to top tier. That's their top BR bracket for it. So obviously they don't really care about updating it at all. They just want it there so that they can call it a feature. And so pretty much every game mode is just a slight riff on the ABRB sim sort of way, which itself is just a slight riff on just the same game mode already. Again, ABRB and sim, they're pretty much the same game mode, just with different difficulty and realism settings. That's it. There's nothing really mechanically incredibly different between those 3 game modes. And so for me personally, again, I would love to see new game modes. In the past, we had things like the Convoy PvE mode that was announced. This was announced at this point 3.5 years ago, and Gaijin made it sound like this would be coming to game probably fairly soon after it was announced, I think somewhere around March, April, or May of 2021. And as you know, it's well beyond 2021 now, and we still don't have any Convoy PvE mode. We don't have any real PvE mode, again, outside of Air and Ground Assault Arcade, which are PvE modes in their most basic, and they're also really tedious. I mean, they can be fun, don't get me wrong, but they're pretty tedious. Now, of course, we have random events, don't get me wrong, but those are once in a while. The April Fool's events, for example, or maybe like the occasional anniversary event that comes around, those can be extremely fun, but guess what? They typically only last maybe a week or two. That's it. And those events tend to be the ones that have the greatest changes to gameplay. It's just absurd that we only get them for so long. When we had the Silent Thunder or the Battle of the Atlantic one, right? Basically submarine mode. The Silent Thunder was the April Fool's one from years and years ago, whereas the Battle of the Atlantic was a much more fleshed out version that came out, I think, last year as of the recording of this video, where you had submarines versus frigates and destroyers and also aircraft. That was so much fun, but it was only in War Thunder for like a weekend. That's it. And so we get these really different game modes, and of course some of them are testing for probably future releases like Battle for the Atlantic. I can't imagine that we won't be getting submarines in the future, but still, as of right now, that's a totally different sort of game style. That's a totally different mechanic than what we have currently. The Mad Max April Fool's event, totally different than what we have currently. You collect scrap and you bring it to bases and all that. It's just totally different than what we have. And so it's just a damn shame that we see these things going away after time. World War mode, for example, that was something that was announced, I think, earlier this year or even later last year that they said would be making a comeback, and guess what? It hasn't. We haven't seen it anywhere ever since it was announced for a brief period of time, and I think like the rewards and the whole scope of it were severely reduced from what they used to be. At one point, the top reward for it was the M60 AMBT, which in my opinion is fantastic, and you could get that for the World War mode, which was just awesome in my opinion. And now World War mode is nowhere to be seen. And if you guys don't know, World War mode was an event where years ago at least, before they kind of changed it up a bit, you could basically take part in battles and change the front line of a battlefield, and basically whoever pushed the most in any given period of time, their team would win the World War mode, which was just awesome. Then of course we have single player mode. Campaign, for example. We don't have campaigns on offer anymore. I mean, of course you have your dynamic campaign, but insofar as like a campaign with a story, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong because it's been a little while since I looked at it, but as far as I know, you can no longer get the packs that bundle in campaign missions. So for example, Pearl Harbor, you can't get that anymore, which is just crazy to me. Gaijin has systematically taken away features of War Thunder. They've taken away game modes instead of adding new ones in, or at least maintaining the ones that are currently already in, or at least at one point were already in, which is just bonkers to me. Another thing that Gaijin announced years ago, and I think this was actually probably one of the initial goals of War Thunder, was a combined game mode where air, ground, and naval would all fight in the same battles. So far, it's basically just ground and air or naval and air. There's no ground and naval in any battles whatsoever. And I get it, that can be technically challenging, I am sure. It's probably going to be something to see in Iowa blast a Tiger tank from 8 miles away, but you know what? Having that game mode, at least in the future, would be awesome. And I get it, again, that one is technically challenging. But other game modes that were tested, they had the coding worked on for it. Convoy PvE, World War mode, single player campaign modes, or other single player modes. Where are they? They don't exist. And so what we're stuck with is this constant ABRB sim. That's pretty much it. And again, you have your various other kind of spin-offs on those, like the helicopter game mode, or enduring confrontation, or air and ground assault arcade. But that's more or less it. We don't have anything else. I mean, you know what I think would be a really fun idea? Maybe Gaijin, once a month, they bring like a grab bag or like a party mix sort of thing, where previous events that were in War Thunder, whether they were April Fool's events or whatever, they come back for a weekend a month, or maybe like a day per month, like on any given Saturday, on any given month, and you can play any of the previous April Fool's events. That would be great. Or maybe like one of the more recent April Fool's events. I think that would be awesome. Heck, even the more common events that we have, the ones that you just get vehicles, I know these ones don't change gameplay at all because you're just playing the regular game in order to get these vehicles, like the Object 292 or the KV-7 or whatever the case may be. Those were originally supposed to only have like 2 to 4 days between them and more or less be a constant fixture in War Thunder. And maybe I think have a month or two out of the year, specifically in summer, where they wouldn't be running. But lo and behold, we now have weeks and weeks between these events. So it's like we got rid of crafting events. We got rid of the summer event. I think we got rid of the winter event as well, so that we could have just one event basically showing up every few weeks where you could get one vehicle instead of a bunch of vehicles. And that isn't even being done consistently like Gaijin has said. So, and that one is the easiest one to do, right? You're just saying, hey, get enough points in any of our regular game modes and you can get this new vehicle. It's not some totally new game mode with new physics, with new gameplay mechanics, with new buttons, controls, this, that, and the other thing. It's just, hey, where are those tanks, planes, and possibly ships that you promised would be event vehicles every now and again? They just don't exist. They don't come around nearly as much as Gaijin said, and that's the easiest of the things. Again, we even had previous events come out for testing, like submarines, which I expect again to come in the future, but more importantly, like the Convoy mode, that just doesn't exist in War Thunder. What happened to that? Are they shelving that entirely? If so, that would suck, because something like that, if you could have that in addition to Air Assault or Ground Assault Arcade or something of that nature, I feel like that would be a pretty big hit. I mean, just playing in a relatively stress-free environment where, especially if you're a new player, you can learn the mechanics, you can team up with people, kind of role play a little bit as like a convoy tanker. That would be really, really cool. And yet, even though they did a seemingly large part of the work and allowed a playable test to come out years ago, it just doesn't exist now, which is a shame. And all that we have instead is Air and Ground Assault Arcade, which is just shameful. And again, it's not that Air and Ground Assault Arcade are bad, because they're not. They're kind of fun in some ways and they offer pretty decent rewards, but the problem is that once you get past 6.7 VR in Air and like 8.3 in Ground, and you try to use like your ME262 or like your T62 or something like that, you're going to be totally outclassed by everyone else on your team if you don't have like a top tier vehicle, which is just crazy to me. And again, that tells you right there that the fact that they're not working on updating brackets, which should be a relatively easy thing to do, that they don't give a damn about Air and Ground Assault Arcade and that they just leave it in, which also raises the question, why are they leaving that in and they took away single player? They took away campaign mode. I just don't get why Gaijin is doing this. Maybe it has to do with server space. Maybe they're still meeting the bare minimum to play Air and Ground Assault Arcade. I don't know. Maybe it's because that's the most visible of the alternative game modes that they have. But again, it's just a slight PvE riff on what we currently have in War Thunder, which again is just Air AB or Ground AB. That's all it is. We have no transformative game modes, which would be such a huge leap forward, in my opinion, for War Thunder, especially in a point where, at least from what I'm seeing in the total player numbers, this game to me feels like it's stagnating. And so I think that Gaijin, by offering more variety in their gameplay modes, could actually go a long way towards possibly securing more people, especially those that might not want like a competitive game, but they want more of a PvE experience. Gaijin could get those people to play War Thunder, again, simply by just offering new game modes. But that said, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Again, just the standard game modes that we have there are all pretty much the same game mode anyways, AB, RB, and Sim. It's really weird that this game has gone on for 12 or 13, maybe even 14 years, however long it's been around, and those are still the only real game modes that we have, with just slight variations on them in the form of helicopter battles, enduring confrontation, and Air and Ground Assault Arcade. And anytime that we get any new fresh event, Gaijin puts them out for a very short period of time, and they limit or completely remove access to them thereafter. Again, like April Fool's events, like Convoy PvE, which to be fair was a beta thing, but I see no reason why we couldn't have that in War Thunder. We should have that in War Thunder, but I am ultimately not a marketing strategist with Gaijin, so I don't know the economics of it, but either way, there's so many things that this game can put in, and there's so many things that they have put in the past that they've just removed. It's just completely dumbfounding to me as a player that we've actually seen a game mode lost over the years, and yet here we are, essentially with just one game mode, just different realism settings. But that said, thanks so much for watching. Again, let me know in the comments below. I've been ranting about this for too long. I want to know what you guys think. But that said, thanks again. I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.